Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today our mission is, well, it's very specific. We are looking 5 years into the future of robotics programming. Forget the basics you might have learned a decade ago. We're here to really uncover the 9 critical skill clusters you need to be mastering right now to stay valuable.
And this is such a crucial pivot point for the whole field. I mean, the fundamental shift is that robots are no longer just isolated pre-programmed tools.
Right. Sitting in a cage doing one thing over and over.
Exactly. They are becoming truly cognitive, collaborative, and constantly connected agents that are pulling data from the cloud and adapting in real time.
Which means the job market itself is just shifting dramatically. I mean, manufacturing is still the cornerstone, but these skills are now just as vital in logistics and healthcare.
Oh, absolutely. And agriculture, the service sector. The successful candidate simply cannot specialize in just one area anymore.
So it's a blend then?
It's a complete blend. You have to combine that bedrock of traditional software and controls engineering with the intelligence from modern AI, robust data practices, and this is critical human-centric skills like safety and ethics.
Okay, so let's unpack these 9 clusters. We'll start with what we're calling the brain and bones, the absolute technical foundation.
Right. We start with the bedrock, foundational engineering. This is all about the core knowledge that governs safe, reliable physical movement.
You'd think that as robots get smarter, the need for that really deep, low-level controls engineering would, diminish a bit.
You would think so.
But it seems cluster 1, here embedded CC++ AL, real-time control theory, sensor integration, is still paramount. Why is that?
Because of physics. I mean, it's that simple. When a robot arm needs to stop precisely in a millisecond or follow a path without shaking.
Without oscillation, yeah.
Exactly. You need a level of predictability that high-level languages like Python just can't guarantee. The core physics engine of the robot has to be absolutely robust, and that's where embedded CC++ lives.
So no amount of AI in the cloud replaces knowing how to safely interact with the actual metal.
Not at the core level.
Yeah.
And that's coupled with a deep, deep understanding of control theory to manage that motion reliably.
Okay, so once you have that reliable physical layer, the next challenge is making sure it can be standardized and managed at scale. That brings us to middleware and platforms.
This is so essential. The moment you have more than one robot or robots from different vendors, you need a common language.
And that standard is pretty much ROS2 now, right? The robot operating system.
Overwhelmingly, you have to understand its architecture, how information flows through nodes, topics, services, and actions. It's the lingua franca.
And the communication under ROS2, that's highly specific. It's not just your standard internet networking.
Precisely. You need to grasp BDS networking concepts. Look, think of it this way. Traditional internet is like a phone call, a one-to-one link. DDS is more like a real-time broadcast system. Every critical piece of data, a sensor reading, a joint angle, is instantly and reliably available to every component that needs it without negotiating a connection.
That's non-negotiable for multi-robot teams then.
Absolutely. That instantaneous data sharing is key.
Yeah.
And of course, because these robots are connected, we have to talk about the cloud.
Edge cloud orchestration.
Yes. The ability to manage robot software remotely is a core skill now. Whether you're using Azure IoT or AWS RoboMaker, you have to know how to securely deploy updates and collect data across a fleet of maybe hundreds of devices.
Wow. Okay, now we get to layer on the intelligence. This is the cluster that really feels like the future. Artificial intelligence and machine learning.
It is, and it starts with the language-based Python, using PyTorch and TensorFlow. But the key differentiator isn't just knowing the libraries, it's knowing the application.
Like what? What's a key application?
Reinforcement learning. We're seeing it applied directly to really complex motion planning.
So YRL for motion planning. Why not just program the path like we used to?
Because traditional path programming is tedious and it breaks the second the environment changes. A box is in the wrong place on a shelf and the old script fails.
Right.
RL lets the robot learn optimal movements through trial and error. It self-optimizes. It learns to handle the chaos of the real world.
And I'm assuming vision is accelerating just as fast.
Definitely. You have to be fluent in advanced computer vision, way beyond basic OpenCV filters. We're talking about models like YOLO for very fast object detection.
You only look once.
It's the one. And increasingly, transformer models for complex scene understanding. So not just seeing an object, but understanding its context and its relationship to everything else.
Okay, so that gives us this intelligent, standardized, and physically robust core. But before we deploy any of this, we need to make sure it's reliable and safe.
Which brings us to validation and scaling. This is really where modern software practices meet the physical world. And the gold standard here is simulation and digital twins.
The why here seems obvious. Testing on multi-million-dollar hardware is slow, expensive,
And dangerous. Exactly. Simulation is crucial for rapid prototyping and, importantly, continuous safety validation. You need competence in platforms like Gazebo or Isaac Sim or Weebots.
But it's more than just running the simulation, right?
Oh, yeah. You need to understand model-based design using tools like MATLAB Simulink to ensure the control systems you're testing are mathematically sound before they ever touch the actual robot.
And a digital twin is kind of useless if it doesn't accurately reflect what's happening in the real world. It has to stay in sync.
It must. That's why a key, and often overlooked skill, is setting up robust data pipelines. These pipelines feed operational data from the real robot back into the twin, constantly synchronizing its state with reality.
A closed-loop system.
Exactly. It's the engine of continuous improvement.
That focus on continuous improvement leads us right into the next cluster, systems integration and DevOps. I mean, traditionally, updating a robot meant someone walking over to it with a USB stick.
And now we're talking CI/CD on thousands of physical assets. It's a huge strategic shift. DevOps is now mandatory in robotics. You have to master containerization using Docker or Nix to package the software reliably.
Why is that so important?
Because you have to deploy the exact same code with all its dependencies across highly diverse hardware, from tiny embedded controllers to huge GPU-driven vision systems. Containers make that possible.
So we are literally running CI/CD on robots now, treating a physical machine like it's a web server that needs constant updates.
Precisely. You need to be fluent in GitHub Actions or GitLab CI to automatically test every code change. And because you're managing a whole fleet, you need infrastructure as code.
To manage the configuration.
Right. It lets you treat thousands of distributed physical assets like a single manageable cloud service. It's the only way to scale securely.
That just dramatically increases the complexity of the job. You're part software architect, part cloud engineer, and you're still responsible for real physics.
It's a lot to juggle.
Okay, let's move to the most sensitive layer, where the robot actually integrates with human processes and the environment.
This takes us into the really high-stakes areas, starting with safety, standards, and compliance. This isn't just technical. This is about legal liability, market access.
If a robot's behind a fence, safety is pretty simple. But the second it works next to a human, a cobot, the rules just fundamentally change.
They absolutely do. Your code itself has to be provably safe. So as a programmer, you have to be fluent in critical ISO standards, especially ISO 10218 and 15066 for collaborative robots.
And for certain industries, it's even more specific.
Oh, yes. If you're building for autonomous vehicles in a factory, you're looking at standards like IEC 61508 or ISO 26262.
So it's not just writing code that works, it's documenting and proving that the system will fail safely.
That is the core of functional safety. It means you need proficiency in analysis techniques like FAEA failure mode, NFX analysis, and HAZUP. And on top of all that, mandatory. With robots always connected, you have this convergence of OT and IT. So secure boot, encryption, secure over-the-air updates. These are necessary features, not afterthoughts.
That whole cluster forces the programmer to think like a compliance officer. So once a robot is certified as safe, how do we make sure people actually want to work with it, which is human-robot interaction, HRI?
HRI is all about creating trust and intuition. If the robot's movements are jerky or unpredictable, humans will reject it. Or worse, they'll find workarounds that compromise safety.
So what are the key competencies there?
It's about motion planning designed with ergonomics in mind, making sure the robot's movements are natural, predictable, and, respectful of human space.
And we're moving beyond just tapping on a screen to interact with them.
Yes. The drive is towards sophisticated natural language processing and multimodal interfaces, letting people communicate using voice or gestures or even eye tracking. The robot needs to be a partner, not just a tool. It has to read context.
Okay, so finally, in the purely technical realm, we have this immense challenge of data engineering and analytics. A robot moving around is just a fire hose of telemetry.
A mountain of it. And if you can't ingest, process, and leverage that telemetry, you're missing the entire point of a connected system. Robots produce timestamp data, so you need expertise in time series databases.
Things like InfluxDB or TimescaleDB.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Crucial for tracking performance in history. And moving that data from the field to the cloud is a major hurdle. That requires knowledge of streaming tech like Kafka or MQTT for real-time processing.
And the strategic value of all that data
is optimization. This data drives predictive maintenance, knowing a part is about to fail before it does. It lets teams optimize movements to save battery life and visualize the entire fleet's health on KPI dashboards with tools like Grafana or Power BI.
We've covered 8 clusters. They span physics, low-level controls, AI, cloud scale, legal compliance, human interaction. It's all intensely technical.
It is.
But all that technical expertise fails without the right organizational support. So let's finish with the human element.
Cluster 9. Soft and business skills. This is the glue. It's what holds the entire cross-functional team together.
So the brilliant coder can't just hide behind a keyboard anymore. They have to be outward-facing.
Exactly. You must be proficient in methodologies like Agile, Scrum, Kanban. You have to understand the project flow, the product roadmap. Intellectually, the most valuable skill is systems thinking.
Decomposing a huge problem.
The ability to decompose a massive, complex physical problem into manageable software and hardware tasks while understanding the ripple effect your one decision has across all the other 8 clusters.
And when you're dealing with safety reports and regulators, communication isn't just about being polite.
It's about risk mitigation. Critical communication skills are required to translate technical jargon for non-technical stakeholders.
For the product owners, the safety officers.
Precisely. You need to speak their language. Your ability to connect a technical risk, say a sensor fusion vulnerability, to a business risk like a product recall or legal liability, that is paramount.
This has been a really eye-opening dive. If we try to synthesize all 9 of these clusters, it's clear the robotics programmer of tomorrow is, well, they're the ultimate generalist who specializes in bridging gaps.
That's the entire takeaway. Future success is less about deep, single-discipline expertise and entirely about blending software rigor, physical controls mastery, AI capability, and, business acumen.
So the people who can show competence across a big chunk of these 9 clusters will be the most valuable.
They'll be the most valuable assets, absolutely, in developing this next generation of cognitive, collaborative robots.
The very definition of a cross-functional role.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over. Given this overwhelming complexity, where one role might have to manage legal compliance, ethical HRI design, reinforcement learning, and embedded C++, how does this reality fundamentally force robotics teams to restructure themselves compared to, say, traditional software teams? And what new hybrid roles are likely to emerge to bridge that competence gap across all 9 clusters?
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Please feel free to click on the link in the description below to discover more podcasts.